Hi, thanks for joining me today. My name is Toni Ressaire, and we're going to be talking today about user help and making it more personalized to improve the user experience. So we're going to be using the example of existing YouTube user help. And YouTube is a really great use case for personalizing user content because, as we all know, YouTube is owned by Google. And Google has a lot of data on us, right? But particularly, we're going to be talking about how we can use user login credentials and data based on user login. So for YouTube, for example, you can create, of course, you can have a Google account, use your Google account for YouTube. And when you have an account, of course, and you're logged into YouTube, then Google knows exactly who you are, right? At least has some information about you. So before we go any farther, I have a message up there for you to ask if you are able to hear my audio okay. So if you're having any problems, if I'm having problems, I should say, with the audio, please type a message for me. I always ask that question because these online webinar tools sometimes have some technical issues, okay? So if I don't have a message from you, I'm assuming that you're hearing my audio, okay? So continuing now, we're going to be looking at the existing YouTube help, and I've reimagined it in such a way that if Google were really taking advantage of the user data that they have on us when we're logged in, they could really make it a lot more personal. YouTube already has embedded help. And we're going to be looking at how, like kind of through an imaginary scenario, using the help that's already there, how it could become more personal. And the point of this, of course, is for you to imagine how you can take your own user help and make it more personal for your users. Now, if you have attended any of my other webinars, or if you've read some of my articles or follow me on LinkedIn, you know that I actually talk a lot about context and about user context. And so just to give a brief background, user context is becoming more and more important in information as technology advances. Whether you're using a mobile device or you're in augmented reality, or even if you're in software, information is becoming more and more personalized based on a user's context. And the context of each user is different, and it's always changing. So when we think about software, for example, and we're going to look at some different user contexts today within YouTube, when we think about software in particular, we can imagine that the users have different contexts, perhaps based on their experience with the software, on what type of device they're using it, or a whole number of other factors. I'll give you some articles that you can look at the end of the webinar if you want to know more about context. So before we move into YouTube, I just want to let you know that the tool that we're going to be using today is called EDC, or Easy.Contents. I'll also give you a link to the website when we're finished here. Now, EDC is designed for embedded user help in software, but also for online help and for linking the two together. Embedded software help, then linked to more information. And when we talk about user context, this is important because when we think about how users are using software and if we want to personalize their experience, one of the things that we can do is allow them to create their own journeys. They create their own journeys within the software itself, but also with the help that they need, because every user, again, has a different experience or maybe at one point they're ready to do this particular task, or maybe they're not, they want to do it later. And by linking online help to the embedded help, we can allow the users to select the information that they need. And you'll see what I mean. Now, I'm talking about EDC and using this tool because it's really, I use a lot of different tools for with software, and this really is my favorite tool for software help. And I think maybe you'll see why as we go along. So let's get started, jumping right in. So when we talk about context, I have created for YouTube here 3 possible user contexts. We're going to call them personas 1, 2, and 3. Kim, you're having a problem with audio and video, I see. Is anyone else having a problem with audio and video? And I'm going to type that into the message. Give me a second here to type that in. I have a slide presentation up there. Let me know if you can hear it and see it. If you're having a problem with audio and video, you may need to sign out and sign back in. I'll type that in too. Okay, so I see one person says they can see and hear very well. So it's working on this end. If you're having a problem, sign out and come back in. And we will be sending out the replay tomorrow. So if you have a little problem with audio or video, be sure to watch the replay. So for now, I'm going to continue as I'm talking about personas. I've imagined 3 different personas for YouTube, and we're going to call them personas 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to explain each of them to you and show you how we have imagined the user help, how it could be redesigned in YouTube. And like I said, YouTube's already got great embedded help, okay? But we want to make it more personalized. So this is my first persona, and I've just selected some random images here, okay? But we're going to call her Alice. So when we talk about a persona, we want to think about some characteristics of this particular user that may or may not indicate their context, and particularly in a specific use case. So here, of course, we're talking about YouTube. So let's look at her persona as it relates to YouTube. So I've imagined Alice as a persona who has a Google account because she uses Gmail, but she does not have a YouTube account. Now, reminding you that Google owns YouTube. And when you sign in to YouTube, you actually use your Google account. So all of the information that Google has about you with your Google account, they can access that information, of course, with YouTube. So our persona, Alice, is about to go to YouTube for the first time. Now, let's say she's in the UK. So YouTube has already determined by her IP address, more likely, that English must be her native language. So that's the first personalization right there, is just by using an IP address and some other things that software can determine what is the language of the user, and the language could possibly change. So here I have a screenshot of YouTube where a user has not been signed in. So let's imagine that Alice comes to YouTube and she is not signed in, or she does not have an account yet. And as I flip over to the next screenshot, I'm going to imagine that YouTube offers up a welcome message. Now, YouTube does not do this as of now, but YouTube could offer up a welcome message. And here's what I have here. Welcome to YouTube, and some instructions. Use your Google account to sign in to YouTube. Now notice that first instruction there, welcome to YouTube and use your Google account to sign into YouTube, is something that we call molecular content. Maybe you've heard it called micro content or bite-sized content, okay? But when we're talking about embedded help, we want to remember to keep the content very minimal, but then offer the user some options. So here's some instructions about how to create an account on YouTube, and you see some procedures down at the bottom there. So you'll notice that this content takes up a very small part of the screen. It's an overlay on the right-hand side of the screen. You can choose to put it wherever you like to on the screen, but that's what I've chosen to do with this example here. So let's say that Alice does indeed want to create an account, and she signs up. The welcome message was a personalization because we knew that Alice either did not have a YouTube account or she was not signed in with her Google account. Well, now we have Alice's name because once she's signed in, we know who she is. We also know that she's signing in for the first time. So because she's signing in for the first time, she doesn't know probably about some of the special features that you get in YouTube only when you're signed into your Google account. You can access YouTube without being signed in, but once you sign in, you get some special features that actually are features that personalize your experience in YouTube, such as your history, recommendations, things like that. I'm sure most of you are familiar with YouTube and how that works. So Alice has a couple of options here. I've just selected a couple, again, from existing YouTube help. It already exists. One of them is an education and courses for YouTube creators, but the second one is getting started. So if Alice is new, she can either choose to explore on her own for now, or she can choose to click this Getting Started. And let's imagine that when she clicked Getting Started, that she was then offered some other options. Now, we're allowing Alice to decide where her journey is going to take her on YouTube. Because right now we may not know a lot about her context, but this at least gives her some options of what things that we know that she may need if she is a first-time YouTube user with an account. So we have some things there like find your way around YouTube, subscribe to channels, what's trending on YouTube, update the YouTube app, YouTube app requirements and availability. Those are some things that maybe she would need as a first-time user. Okay, so now we've offered up this information and it's in the software and it's personalized. So let's take a look at another user with a different context. So I'm calling this user Frank. Now, Frank already has a YouTube account. He has already signed into YouTube at least once. Let's say in this context that he created his account or he signed in for the first time maybe last month, or maybe it was 6 months ago. But he hasn't logged into his account since he created it. Or maybe he logged in once or twice, but he hasn't logged in at least a month. And now he's going to log into his YouTube account. Now, again, using login credentials, the software can recognize how long it's been since Frank last logged in. So here we have some context that we can determine using just login credentials, okay? Now, we already know that YouTube uses our context by tracking what we watch on YouTube and offering up recommendations. So this is just taking that personalization into the help information as well, and not just into the YouTube experience, but into the help information. So now Frank has gone to YouTube and he has signed back in. Now here's what Frank would normally get in YouTube as it exists today. Frank could click on the help screen, and this is the type of help that Frank would get. I'm showing it to you because this is what YouTube does. And I was telling you before, I think they've got great embedded help. So here we go, need more help, send feedback, contact the support team, clear your watch history, upload videos. Here's some different options, but you notice that they're not personalized. For Frank or for Alice. This is what everyone gets. Everyone gets the same help screen when they log in. But what happens if it's personalized and Frank has just logged in? We know who he is and we can say, "Welcome back, Frank." Now that's a different message than we gave Alice, who was signing in for the first time. So we're here to help you become a YouTube power user. I just selected this message. This is not an existing YouTube help. This is something that I added because just to give you a sense of the type of language that we may use depending on the user's context. We certainly wouldn't give this type of language to a user who's been using YouTube for 10 years and they've got all kinds of channels and things like that. And again, that's data that YouTube has on us, and they can use that data to personalize the experience. So let's say we're going to help Frank become a power user, and because we know his context and we know that he hasn't logged in except maybe once or twice, he still is going to need a little bit of beginner help. Okay, so we're going to offer him something like this: find your way around YouTube, some information about, do you know if you're signed in or not? So see, he already has an account. We maybe wouldn't have showed this to Alice, but we'll show this to Frank. We know he has an account, so here's some information about sign in. And there's a YouTube video that he can watch on how to browse your subscription on mobile. So taking it to the next step. And maybe we would only show that, of course, if we knew that he was signed in on his computer. If he were signed in on mobile, we wouldn't show that video, right? Necessarily. So if Frank were to click on the Open the YouTube guide and not so much getting started on YouTube, we might see some of the same articles that we showed to Alice, but we might offer something a little bit more advanced because Frank has been into YouTube at least once before. So we might still offer Find Your Way Around YouTube, but then maybe we'll offer some other things like subscribe to channels. I don't think we had that on Alice's. I don't remember. So maybe we can offer some of the same information or a little bit of different information based on Frank's context. So now we're going to look at Persona 3. And for Persona 3, I've selected myself. That's my image up there, and I'm Toni. So I have a YouTube account, just like Frank. But I've been using my YouTube account for several months, maybe even a year. Again, Google's been watching what I've been doing. YouTube's been watching. They have this information. So according to YouTube's data on me, I've never created a channel, but I watch a lot of vloggers. So now for this user experience, I've just logged into my account and I've just watched another vlogger. And you can see that my image is up there. This is my YouTube account. And after I've logged in and watched that vlog, maybe YouTube offers me a friendly message that says, "Toni, do you want to vlog?" And offers me some information how I could do that if I were interested. Now I can choose to go further with this information or not. So it gives me a little bit of information about creating a new channel, and then it offers me two links down there: create a personal channel or create a brand channel, because YouTube's not really sure exactly which one I may be most interested in, so I get to make the choice. So I'm going to choose a personal channel. And when I click on that link, the help is replaced by a very small piece of content that very briefly tells me how to create a personal channel. And if I wanted to look at the business channel, the information would be different if I had clicked business. And here's the example on the screen here of that. So now what I'm going to do, since I've shown you my screenshots and, I basically used Photoshop to recreate the YouTube experience the way I imagined it as a more personalized user experience. But what I'm going to do now is show you from a content creator's perspective how you can do this in EDC. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And I seriously hope when I share my screen, this webinar software is very heavy and takes a lot of bandwidth. So I hope that I don't lose you, okay? I'm sharing my screen. Give me a minute here. And I'll kind of move a little slowly here because sometimes it takes you a little while to see my screen. Okay. So I've got my screen up there. And excuse me, I am showing the EDC editor. Now give me just a second here. I've got another window open so that I can try to see your chats in case you need to tell me something. Okay, because I can't really see that while I'm sharing my screen with you. Okay. So I don't see anything, so I'm going to move on. So this is the EDC editor. Right now we're in the editor part of it. There's configuration, dashboard, publishing, and all sorts of things. And you'll notice on the left, we have our content strategy. So what I want to demonstrate to you here is how you can use. Now we're going to move to kind of the subject of molecular content, because you notice as we were offering up information in YouTube, the bytes were very small. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, of course, is that when you're working on a screen, especially if you're viewing something on a mobile device, then you don't have a lot of screen real estate. So you always need to keep that in mind, of course, when you're talking about that personalized content, either embedded in software or embedded in online software like YouTube. We'll call it software, okay, or in a website. You can embed the content either directly into your software, even in hardware, software that's loaded on the hardware, or you can embed it into online software. We're looking today at content, that personalized content embedded into online software, okay? So I'm going to give you an example in EDC where we have some embedded help just to show you what it can look like. So here's documentation types. Over on the left, this is your content strategy. And we have some help that basically tells you what is a documentation type. It's UI that appears in software windows. And that's what we just saw in YouTube. But other document types appear as links. So you notice in YouTube, we had some embedded help that appeared in the window, but then we had some links that people could click on as well. In EDC, these links look like this. So that's what our embedded help in EDC looks like. So what I wanted to talk about then was the molecular content. There's another reason we want to use molecular content. For one thing, we want to be able to reuse content. And if you've been creating content for a while, you know what I'm talking about reusing content. But the other thing is, if we're going to get really personal and we're really going to try to target a user's context, we need our content to be molecular so that the analytics that are delivering up the content to the user based on their context can decide what content they need and can take these small bites of content, amalgamate them, and put them together to create a personalized user experience. So here I have the example of welcome to YouTube. And this is what Alice saw, as you recall, after she signed into YouTube. So in EDC, I'm going to switch over here to this tab called parameters. This is the actual embedded help. And when we're in EDC, we can write this help under contextualized UI help. Okay? So what we saw for Alice was welcome to YouTube. And then under that, we saw use your Google account to sign into YouTube. Now, but then we wanted to add that information, some information. As you recall, we gave Alice some helpful information after we welcomed her. This one here, actually, to sign into YouTube, this is not correct. This should have gone to, oh no, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here. The welcome to YouTube was what she saw before she was signed in. Okay, right, this makes sense. So now it's giving her the instructions to sign into YouTube. You'll need to create an account, and here are the instructions on how you do that. Now, I want you to note that each of these pieces of content are separated. They're in these two separate modules here. And that's because actually I did not write this content here into the embedded help. What I did was I just reused it. Okay, this content is actually down here in what we use for the online related links kind of help. And this content, each of these as individual pieces of content, individual molecules. I just pulled each one in, pulled them into this. I'll show you an example. Let's see if I can find another one that I can pull in and reuse from somewhere else. Let's see what's available to me. How about create an account? Well, this is the one that's already in there, but I'll just bring it in again to show you. Okay, so it's basically the same information here. So I can delete that now because I've already got that in there. Let's look for the next one, which is thanks for signing up. The next message that Alice got. So here we have thanks for signing up for YouTube, and we can use something like username because it's going to be personalized. Here are some articles to help you get started. This time is I've just linked to a couple of articles, and as I showed you with the way we have it in EDC, if you can imagine, you saw how it looked in YouTube. Basically, these are more information and related topics. Okay? So then let's take a look at Frank's message, which is welcome back. Okay? Welcome back, username. We're here to help you become a YouTube power user. And once again, I've just taken some articles that are in the, what I'll just refer to as the online help strategy down here, and I've just basically pulled them in. I can pick them up and rearrange them. Here's that video. If I decide that I don't want that video here, I can simply delete it, and I can pick things up and move them around as well. So this shows you the importance of using molecular content, because what I could do is any of these pieces of content that are here could also be used in a different persona. And I'll just show you real quick how I've imagined some content. I have, just for the sake of this webinar, put in personas 1, 2, and 3 to show you how I've kind of organized some content. So the content that you saw on the screenshots inside of YouTube is actually living in here. And you can see they're very molecular. You'll recall that in the contextualized help, I had linked to these articles here, education and getting started. And you may recall seeing those on the screen in YouTube after Alice first signed in. But this shows you how if you're using two important elements, you're writing for context, but you're using molecular content, because molecular content can help the analytics, the machine that is amalgamating that information to personalize the information for the user. The molecular content will make that possible. So like I said to you in the beginning, this is why EDC is absolutely my favorite product, my favorite software for doing this, because EDC was designed for molecular and contextual content. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and come back to you. Let me turn my screen sharing off. Okay. And there are a couple of things that, a couple of links that I told you I would give you. Sorry, I'm having difficulty multitasking here. So I want to go over to the chat and put in some links for you. easy.contents.com is the website for EDC. And the reason I'm giving you that is there are a number of things related to today's webinar that you can do there. For one thing, you can go to the demo and you can try EDC for free. Every 24 hours, all of the content gets erased, so you can do anything you want in that demo. It's a real live demo. The other thing is, if you're interested in following more webinars like this one, you can go to the blog page on EDC and scroll down just a little bit into the sidebar, and you can sign up for free webinars, and we'll just send you an email whenever we're doing a webinar. Believe me, EDC doesn't spam you. You're lucky to get a message once every other month or once a month. It's just for webinars, that email sign up, okay? The other thing is, on the blog, there are a couple of articles that I've written for the EDC blog that talk about what we've been talking about today. Context, molecular content. There's an article on there about how we reimagined the YouTube help. And there's also an article on there. Let me share my screen with you just one more time before we go, because I want to access that article. Let's see, I have to select it before I can share it. Okay. So if you can see my screen, this is the EDC website. Here's the demo. Here, if you just click on the demo, you'll just sign up and it'll give you the username and password to get into the demo, and you'll see exactly what we were saying today. But here on the blog, I'm clicking that, and let's see, with the webinar software running, it's moving a little bit slowly, but here it comes. Down here is where you can sign up for the webinars, and you'll just get information when we have new webinars. But here's the article that I wanted to show you, because this one talks a little bit more about what I was talking about today, about using user login or authentication to design personalized user content. So if you're interested in how you may want to do that, you may want to take a look at this article. So once again, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to come back to you, and I'm going to say thank you for coming today. And I'm going to invite you to contact me if you either want a demo of what I did today, a personal demo of how EDC actually works to do this type of personalization and to create molecular content, or if you want to talk to me a little bit more about how you can begin to personalize and contextualize the user content that you're working with. Okay, you can contact me on LinkedIn. Type my name into the chat here. If you want to talk to someone specifically at EDC, just go to the website. You can contact them there. But this is my contact information. I do not work for EDC, but they are one of my clients and one of the pieces of software that I use for this type of work. But if you look me up on LinkedIn, some of you actually already know me on LinkedIn. I recognize some of you here. I see you're connected with me on LinkedIn already, Joanna and Kim. But you can feel free to text, message me in LinkedIn if you have any questions at all, okay? So I thank you for coming today. I always promise to keep these webinars really short. We're at 35 minutes. That's pretty good. I won't take up a lot of your time. Please, again, feel free to email me or message me on LinkedIn. Tomorrow, you will get another email with a replay of today. So you will have, unlimited access to the replay if you want to go back and look at some things again. So have a great afternoon or evening, depending on where you are in the world. And I hope to see you on our next webinar or on LinkedIn. Take care.